Have you ever really stopped to think about how your car's engine works? It's a place of constant fiery explosions, yet it doesn't just melt into a puddle on the road. Well, today, we're diving into the incredible system that prevents exactly that. We're talking about the unsung hero of your vehicle, its cooling system.
I mean, really think about that for a second. An internal combustion engine is literally just a series of thousands upon thousands of contained explosions happening every single minute you drive. The amount of heat that generates is just immense. So what in the world is stopping that entire block of metal from turning into a molten mess?
Well, the answer is a constant, invisible battle against all that extreme heat. And in this fight, your engine has a crucial ally, one that's working non-stop every single second the car is running.
And that ally is the cooling system. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like the engine's very own circulatory system. It's designed to constantly pump this special fluid, we call it coolant, right through the hottest parts of the engine to soak up all that thermal energy and carry it safely away.
So how does this whole life-saving journey actually work? It's a continuous loop that's both incredibly simple and, frankly, brilliant. Let's follow the coolant as it makes its way from the fiery heart of the engine out to the radiator and all the way back again.
It all kicks off with the water pump. Think of it as the heart of the system. It pushes coolant into this network of channels that surround the hottest parts of your engine. This area is often called the cooling jacket. There, the fluid's main job is to soak up that intense heat from combustion. This now superheated coolant flows out to the radiator, which sits right at the front of your car. As you drive, air rushes through the radiator's thousands of tiny fins, pulling the heat out of the fluid. And finally, that cooled down fluid returns to the pump, ready to start its whole journey all over again. It's just this constant, beautiful cycle.
But the system is even smarter than that. There's this critical little part called the thermostat, and you can think of it as a gatekeeper. See, when your engine's cold, the thermostat keeps the coolant circulating only within the engine block so it can warm up as fast as possible. But once it hits that ideal temperature, the thermostat opens up, bringing the radiator into the loop to maintain that perfect balance for peak performance and efficiency. It's a really clever piece of engineering.
And what about the radiator cap? It's so much more than just a lid. It's actually a precision pressure valve. By sealing the system and keeping it under pressure, about 1.1 bar is pretty typical, it significantly raises the boiling point of the coolant. This lets the fluid handle way higher temperatures without boiling over, which is an absolutely crucial feature for any modern engine.
So every part of this system is under a ton of stress, from the pump to the hoses to the cap. But the real workhorse, the coolant itself, well, it doesn't last forever. Over time, it starts to degrade, and what was once your engine's protector can actually become a threat to the very thing it's supposed to save.
You know, modern coolant is this amazing high-tech cocktail of chemicals, and each one has a very specific job. It's an antifreeze in the winter and an anti-boil fluid in the summer. But just as important, it's packed with a complex blend of additives that fight rust and corrosion. It even helps lubricate vital parts like the water pump seals. It's got a lot of superpowers.
But this slide really shows you the dark side. Over thousands of miles and countless heat cycles, those protective additives just get used up. Fresh coolant is brightly colored, full of anti-corrosion power. Old coolant, it gets dark, murky, and nasty. And what's worse, it actually turns acidic, which means it starts actively eating away at the metal inside your engine, forming sludge that can clog up all those delicate passages in the engine and radiator.
Yeah, as the automotive expert Chris Fix famously put it, old coolant can start to look like coffee or mud. And that is definitely not something you want circulating through the heart of your engine.
And it's not just the fluid that can fail. You have these sneaky saboteurs, too. A worn-out radiator cap, for example, can't hold pressure anymore, which dramatically lowers the boiling point and puts you at risk of overheating. A slightly loose hose clamp can cause a slow, almost invisible vapor leak that drains your system over time. And in the worst-case scenario, an internal engine issue, like a failing head gasket, could let coolant leak into the engine, which is what creates that ominous white smoke coming out of your exhaust pipe.
So, what's the solution to old, contaminated, engine-damaging coolant? Well, it's a proper coolant flush. The best way to think about it is like hitting the ultimate reset button for your entire cooling system.
The whole process is really about total renewal, and it happens in 3 phases. First, you drain every last drop of that old muddy fluid. Get it all out. Second, you flush the entire system, usually with distilled water, to clean out any of that lingering sludge and gunk. And finally, you fill the now pristine system with fresh, new coolant, restoring all of its protective superpowers. Conceptually, it's pretty straightforward.
You need the correct new coolant for your specific vehicle. That's the fresh lifeblood of the system. You need distilled water for a clean flush because it doesn't have any minerals that can cause scale or deposits. And you absolutely need drain pans to safely capture that old toxic fluid so it can be recycled properly and not just dumped down the drain.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the how, but now we get to the most important part. Why should you really care about all this? Because the health of this one single fluid is directly tied to your car's long-term survival and, maybe just as importantly, to your wallet.
This chart right here, it tells the whole story. Proactive maintenance, getting a coolant flush every now and then, is a relatively low-cost service. It's manageable. But if you neglect it, that corrosive old fluid can destroy your water pump, leading to a much more expensive, medium-cost repair. And if things get really, really bad and the engine overheats severely, you could be looking at a head gasket failure, a cripplingly expensive, high-cost repair that can easily run into the thousands. The difference is just staggering.
So let's wrap this all up. What are the key takeaways? Number 1, your cooling system is your engine's absolute lifeline against destroying itself. 2, the coolant is its lifeblood, but that lifeblood gets old and wears out. 3, old coolant becomes a poison, actively corroding your engine from the inside out. 4, a periodic coolant flush isn't just maintenance, it's some of the cheapest insurance you can possibly buy against a catastrophic repair bill. And finally, always remember, that old fluid is toxic, so please handle it and dispose of it responsibly.
Look, your engine's cooling system performs an absolute miracle of thermal management every single time you turn the key. So the real question to leave you with is this: are you giving it the support it needs to keep performing that miracle?